Okay. So that's on the calendar. Oh, I don't see him yet.
So Tuesday at 10, right? Or,
Yep.
oh my gosh, it's Thursday at 10. Okay.
Thursday at 10.
Got it.
Okay, Dan's jumping
Hi,
on.
Dan.
Well, hello.
How are you?
Life is good. How about you two?
Good. It's good
Doing
to
well.
see you.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
This is Jeff. Jeff is my broker. He's amazing. I joined EXP because of him and his wife. Together, they've been in the business total about 30 years. They own many properties. He's done many transactions. He's my mentor. He's awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm really lucky he jumped on the call with us.
Wow. No, I'm glad to be.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Dan. So, Leah's told me a little bit. We had a little chat on the phone, and she said you had this Zoom call jumped up, and it made sense, or lined up, so it made sense for me to just jump on. Like Leah said, we started investing in real estate 30 years ago. And when I say we, I'm talking about my wife and I. And if I keep pointing like this, it's because she's downstairs. I tend to point in the direction of things. Like I live over there, she's down there. So yeah, we have a pretty nice portfolio. Residential real estate was our kind of focus, although we do own some commercial and some land. And I kind of understand that you have at least one rental property, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, awesome. And looking to acquire another one.
Yes, sir.
So tell me a little bit about your objective there, your goal. Is this a short-term hold, long-term hold? I know a little bit already, but tell me what kind of product you're looking for.
So for me, the way I'm more of a Warren Buffett type of investor. I am more of a buy and hold.
I am as well.
So I'm not looking to really flip stuff unless it really makes sense, but I'm more focused on trying to generate income, basically.
Yep, fantastic.
Knowing that I've got a bunch of different ways I kind of think about this, but like I said, I'm more of a buy and hold. I'm looking to generate income, not really looking to flip that much unless it makes way more sense to do that, but it's going to be more of a buy and hold.
Yeah, those are totally different products, and I'm right in alignment with that. I mean, I end up flipping dozens of properties by default because the product I was buying was a distressed home. And so to kind of force my appreciation up, we were buying rundown properties and remodeling them with the objection of holding them. But when you do that on a big basis, you get people that want to buy them. And, you know, like we started in the early 90s, competition wasn't as fierce as a seller's market like this is right now for investors. There's a lot of money out there right now. But when you're in a kind of a non-appreciating or a slow market, people tend to say, well, why are you doing this? Why are you holding this? They're not even going up in value that much, right? But it is a long-term play, a long-term hold. So we built our portfolio up to 60 properties back in 2005. And like I said, we flipped a bunch on the way by just the nature of doing deals. So if we would have been looking for flip properties, that would have been a different objective. So I'm glad you kind of know what you want to do, because it's too confusing if you say, well, I wouldn't mind doing this, I wouldn't mind doing that, then you end up doing nothing. Right?
Agreed. And let me ask you a little bit about your 60 homes that you own, Jeff. You've been doing this, you said, took you about 30 years to acquire 30 properties. I get that right?
We reached our peak in 2005. And so so I kind of backed off at that point, because back in that market is when the appreciation was really kind of, causing a lot of speculation in our market. Mm-hmm. That's when the prices really jumped up to the 07, 08 crash. So I quit in 05. I'm like, hey, all these speculators are messing up my game. And so I backed out and didn't buy for a while. And because I wasn't in that arena anymore, but that's what I knew, I started an investors group. I figured, you know what, if I'm not doing these transactions myself, I'll help other people do it. And so that also was kind of tough, because in the crash, I started before the crash, but then the crash happened and everybody was scared to do anything, right? The uncertainty hit the market. They didn't know what they wanted to get into because they didn't know if they could get out. And it just, everything came to a screech and stop. So in 09, as an effect of that, So see, another part of my background is I invested while I had another company. I had a landscape company. So that was my job or my business to generate income. And then I threw everything I could make at real estate. Okay. So in 09, after the crash, Lynn, my wife, she didn't really want me to go back to investing because I had 2 crews working for me. We had, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 deals going at once. We were easily turning 2 or 3 properties a month, and she had to take care of all the books. So I'm out there, you know, playing Monopoly. I'm acquiring and negotiating, and I'm subbing all the work and everything and having a blast, and I'm driving her nuts. And so I wanted to stay married, so I didn't go back in.
It's a great way to restart over, get divorced. I'll tell you that. I've been through that process.
You said you had to start over?
I've had to start over.
Oh yeah. So I don't know many people where that was a good experience. So hopefully, are you remarried now?
I'm remarried now. So we've been married for about 6 years roughly. And
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. We just had a little girl who's about 4 or 5 months old. So we're burning the candle at both ends. Did Leah tell you a little bit about what I do for a living, that sort of thing, to kind of give you a little bit more of my background?
No, not much. We talked more about what you wanted to do and what I could help with, but yeah, I am curious. I'd like to know.
So I'm with Fidelity Investments. I deal with large institutions like hedge funds, family offices, endowments, wealth, just big money basically. And I help with the onboarding and let's say custody and trading of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
So that's been where I've been at for about 1.5 years. Before that, I help onboard large institutions like Duke, Stanford with their retirement plans. So I'm looking to diversify kind of my overall basket of investments to try and, like I said, I have a goal of wanting to be somewhat semi-retired in about 10 years. It's a big, I know it's total bullshit. I'll just be clear with you on that. There's a lot of asymmetric risks I've got to manage, things like that. But that's kind of what I'm looking at doing.
Okay. No, real estate's a great vehicle, and I chose to stay in real estate and not diversify into some of the other products that you have, just because I felt personally I had more control. It's a tangible product, and I could affect its value by, you know, making a good purchase, by enforcing appreciation, increasing the value of the product. I can't do that with, you know, traditional investments.
And on what you're comfortable with and what you have access to.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that's a whole nother learning curve too. That's why I primarily residential, where a lot of people then will jump to apartments, then jump to commercial or industrial space and graduate up that way. Each one of those is a different learning curve. Right. I decided to stay with residential, stick with what I knew instead of starting over learning something else. So that's a great background. I can tell you're very analytical, really kind of wanting to make a good decision here and, you know, maximize what you have to work with.
Yeah, and so let me ask you a little bit more about your portfolio here. You see you have 60 homes. What's your rate of return? Can you tell me a little bit? I don't care how much money you're making. I'm looking just for rough numbers of what kind of rate of return are you getting for the kind of capital that you've got out there?
So we only have 42 properties now, which equates to 48 doors.
Okay.
Like I said, we built that portfolio up to 60 before the crash. So when you own 60 residential properties where primarily your tenants are blue collar workers that are no longer working, divorces were happening during that, you know, last recession, people losing their jobs, literally get to the end of the month and haven't collected half our rents. So I had to kind of, I mean, that was a long period where I had to kind of sell some of those to feed the others, just a juggling of assets, right? So it sucks to sell real estate on the way down, but when you're doing it for a purpose to preserve the capital you can to feed the others and maintain, and I feel very blessed and fortunate I came out on the other side with over 40 still. And zero.
Yep, I know a lot of my friends who are in real estate and mortgage brokers who they had the big fancy house, the BMW, and the whole process. They went back to driving their college beater and renting a room someplace.
Yep.
I've seen that process. So on the 48 doors, are you making like 7% on your capitalization rates? What's your margin?
So when you bought your first one in 1992, and you know, we bought some in the 90s and then obviously built that up to 2005, your acquisition cap rate or ROI is one thing. Where we're at now is totally different. So let me give you an example of why my scenario is a little bit different. The first one we bought, we literally were landscaping. Maybe the first seven or eight. And we would save up our 20% down payment, go buy a property, save up 20% down payment, go buy a property. That wasn't scalable for me. So I kind of morphed into a different, my program was to acquire a property without having to put 20% down. So from there on out, I either didn't put any money down or I got cash out. And this is how I did it. I would still buy those distressed properties and then I would remodel it. So I got a whole new product now, right? I put the money into it. It's now a remodeled, I'm talking everything, appliances, furnaces, ACs, roofs, windows. I made a nice product because it was something I was going to hold. So I acquired knowing I was going to do that. So when I refinanced, that became my long-term carrying debt service. So go to those pay cash, remodel, refinance, get my money back. So now I have a product with at least 20% equity and I'm not into it.
Right.
So that accomplished a lot of things because a lot of those improvements qualified as repairs as well, right? And as I'm sure you're aware, with real estate, you get to write off your repairs annually as an actual expense. You have to capital.
About depreciation, right? Is that what you mean by that?
Well, no, that's separate. I'm talking about an actual tax write-off.
Okay, so you're talking about for
If it's a repair, it's a write-off. If it's a capital improvement, it adds to your.
Okay, I'm with you. How you're explaining.
Okay. So I accumulated hundreds of thousands of dollars of write-offs because of the work I was doing, but I got all my money back when I refinanced it. So it wasn't literally an out-of-pocket cash expense. So now everything I made, I could, anyway. So that was kind of like a double dip. I got the appreciation, increased my cost basis, but a lot of carry forward. And you can carry that forward 20 years.
And I get what you're doing there just with your situation. Okay, so.
So my scenario is not going to apply to say, okay, this is what I did that way. I looked for this ROI. And you know, it doesn't matter anyway. We got to simplify this down. You're going to buy, like right now, just one property, right?
Right.
Okay, one property. So we got to make just a couple simple decisions to start moving the momentum forward. And honestly, this is just my opinion. It doesn't have anything to do with cap rate. It doesn't have to do with anything with ROI. It has to do with what kind of product you want to own, where you want to own it, what price range are you in based on your down payment and what you're investing into the deal. Mm-hmm. Then all we're doing is we're going to find the best one of that product. But for instance, I chose to stay in the starter home market, like 3 bedroom and a half bath. I have some much larger properties, but the bulk of the portfolio, Kearns, West Valley, Sandy, West Jordan, all over the valley, but most of them are a starter home. The reason being is affordability. I don't want vacancies, and I very seldom have them. So vacancies and maintenance are my biggest expense in owning a portfolio of real estate. If I can eliminate those things by remodeling my purchase, right? Now it's a little bit different because I've owned some of them for over a couple of decades, right? So there's maintenance that's going to come up. But I get the people that are moving out of condos and duplexes and apartments that want their own yard and a garden and a dog. And then I also, during the downturn, I got all those people downscaling. And so I was in a very marketable product. That was my choice. One of my other investors' friends, he likes newer homes around the tech point of the mountain area. So it's Lehigh, Eagle Mountain, Bluffdale. Those are his target areas. And he likes brand new homes because there's some good money jobs there. And he'll get guys in a brand new $400,000 house, and he gets a single dude that's 30 years old that rents the whole thing.
Right. Okay.
That's a product that he wants to own. It's new. So he's deferring any potential maintenance for a lot of years, right? So when you're thinking of that, it's like, okay, I think Leah mentioned Sugar House. That's kind of where you're at now, right?
Correct.
You've got a lot of older homes there. Okay. So that product is very high demand. Sugar House Avenues, all through there, that's like the highest cost per square foot in the county. So a lot of people live there, but you can look at 2, 3, 4, 5 different homes and go off a cost per square foot or go off for whatever markers you want. But one might have completely updated roof, plumbing, electrical. Mm-hmm. Right. So those are good, like thumbnail sketches to compare apples to apples. Then you got to drill down and say, okay, what is the product really? What is it really? Because if it's been updated in the last 2 years and this other one hasn't been updated 30 years, totally different product, but yet they're both in Sugar House and those sellers both think they're worth the same amount.
I totally couldn't agree with you more. One thing, I'll take it out a little bit farther out. When I think about taking on, when I think about taking on a client in general, and this includes renters, is I'm taking on their problems. So the people I typically like to work with, I've had a lot of good luck with, are typically people who have, oh, this is my wife, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
This is the new baby. This is Jeff, Leah's mentor. We're just talking shop.
What's the baby's name?
Rowan.
Rowan. Hi, Rowan. So I got a 4-month-old and a 9-month-old grandbaby.
She's 5 months.
Yeah, she's right in there.
Yeah.
My Zoom call looked like this morning when we were doing team meeting. One of my daughters lives in Reno, one's in Draper, but they both had their babies. So and they work for me, right? So it kind of became a family/team meeting. The kids on the screen. Our team meetings take about 2 hours.
I was gonna say.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So the people I typically like to work with, I like to work with what I've had a lot of good luck with, it seems like, is to try to find people at the U that are either getting their PhD, like in physics or math. They're there, they've got money coming in from, let's say, a grant, a loan, something like that. They're there to teach class for 2-3 years, 4 years, or whatever it is. And they're there to study, teach class, and then they're off to their next thing. They seem to do pretty well with keeping the property nice. They got money coming in, so that kind of indemnifies me from, let's say, some of the ups and downs of the economy. The second piece we've had some good luck with is people who are in the medical field. So we're talking, let's say, pharmacists, pharmacy techs, people like that have nurses, people who have a demand that's not going away.
Sure.
Now, when you talk about the Sugar House area, depending on, it's very loose in a way, as you know. Like I said, are the properties, does it have a driveway where they have off-street parking? Some of those amenities you talked about, are the rooms updated, the electrical, the plumbing? So yeah, I'm with you on those same pages. As I define my investment strategy being very much more specific, just like you have with your 48 properties, that's what you guys helping me kind of fine tune that a little bit, is a little bit about what I need too. So some of the property you sent over, Leah, so that one, I guess not the fourplex, but the triplex, that looked kind of interesting because it was updated, but it's on a really busy street next to, I think, the bagel factory. I know that area. It's just really close to our house.
Yeah, it's right. I drove past it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Well, since you mentioned busy street, that's another tangible that you need to consider too, because either your buyer pool for Leah and us as agents, or your tenant pool as a landlord is going to increase or diminish depending on certain things. And your type of client that you're talking about may or may not have small kids.
Right.
They're professors rather than students. It's likely they might have already started their family. So that ideal professor may not want to rent on that one on a busy street because he's got that little kid.
You are correct. So like I said, trying to be very specific on what my investment strategy is on this piece. Like you said, that does speak to me. Like I said, I'm starting more with the individual. Who do I want to work with and who do I want in my space?
Sure, absolutely.
So
they are part of your life.
So we're very much on the same page there. So
good.
Also, Leah, thank you for the email on the Utah Board of Realtors. I've been listening to that and then also reading that stuff from Harvard. Awesome. Great stuff.
Isn't it amazing? That gentleman came out from Harvard and just gave us the whole big picture. And I really like how he could break it down into the microcosm that is Utah and then Salt Lake. And we just really do have a unique market that I don't feel like you can compare to the rest of the nation, because we have such strong growth in our economy and in our population. So, and I love, you'll probably play with it later, but on the website, you can drill down to different areas. You could look at Detroit and Los Angeles and Georgia, and then you can look at Utah. So it's really fun to play with.
I do think affordable housing is a misnomer. Everywhere I've been over the last 3 years, it's kind of a joke.
Right.
And that's my opinion. But we're here in Salt Lake. We won't go off on a tangent. But I guess what are the next steps? The way I like to do things, when I bought this house I bought the current house for about $94 a square foot. back in 2004, which seemed to have worked out so far. Yes, it needs to be updated, things like that, but I usually like to look at the stats of a house, kind of look at it online, crunch some numbers, see where it takes me. Do you guys have a different way of speeding up that process, or what's the new tech that's out there with doing this?
Well, it's not so much tech dependent, even though that's kind of your world and crunching those numbers in spreadsheets and whatnot. To me, again, it's a little bit simpler than that. Once we define the product in the geographical area you want, you're not going to have a whole lot to crunch through. Okay, so very first, it's going to become a comparison game, right? There might be 5 that meet your criteria, let's say, as an example. You're going to easily say these 2 are the best ones based on projected rents. And again, I don't even know what product you're looking for. Are you looking for multifamily, single family homes? I mean, you want to drill down on that if you want a single home or if you want a multi-home. And then you're doing comparison, because you'll find a $400,000 house that might bring in, say, $2,800 a month rent, and then you find a $500,000 house because it's in a good location, but it only brings in the rent that still isn't up with the value of the home, so it only brings in $3,000.
Right.
Okay, so it's a balance between acquisition and then, cash flow, which would go to your debt service and your return on your cash on cash investment. I'm assuming you have the down payment to do like a 20 or a 25.
Yes.
Okay. And are you working with a lender already?
I've contacted Brandon Tripp. I've got lots of, I come also from an insurance background. So like I said, I got plenty of contact. That won't be a problem.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously I have my preferred lenders too.
Okay,
So,
right.
Leah, so if you wanted to do comparison that way, the team that you assemble is kind of crucial to the transaction itself and the experience. So I know we're talking numbers and stuff like that, but when you're comparing professionals like that, just like in your industry, your value might not be comparable to somebody else that charges less. And there's like, oh, I'm going to go with this guy because he charges less. You might have a different experience, advice, and tutelage that you're going to give that investor based on your background. So compare the personalities, their communication, and all of those other things other than just the rate sheet, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. Yep,
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, yeah,
Perfect.
I'm open to whatever you guys have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because I'm kind of, I want to talk about your house for a minute.
Okay.
I'm kind of known for going on listing appointments and talking people out of selling their house. Tactic for a realtor. But I liked people to know what all their options are. Okay. And one of those for those getting into real estate, because you're talking minimum requirements, right? Minimum down payment requirements. Interest rate on your debt service is going to be different as an investor product versus a homeowner product.
Mm-hmm.
Is your personal residence possibly rental worthy?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll consider this. And some of this you may already know, but this is kind of the conversation I go with people. The best loan you can get on a property is an owner-occupied loan.
Great.
Down payment, best interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to start your portfolio or continue in your first acquisitions, is to buy another primary residence, because the debt service for a long-term hold is everything. Okay, we're in interest rates right now that I never saw when I was building my portfolios. Half my portfolio is over 7%. And I can't even refinance them because I have over 40 mortgages on my credit report. I wouldn't do it now anyway because they're so amortized out, right?
Right.
Start over unless I really had a good use for that capital to go move into something else. More likely I'd just do a 1031 exchange and go buy something else. So you have options. If you throw this one into the mix as a potential, maybe you buy a primary residence because you have your primary residence tax exemption right now to where you don't have to do a tax deferred exchange if you sold this primary residence for up to 3 years. The rule is you have to live in it 2 of the previous 5 years. So you could keep it now, because I'm sure you wouldn't argue with me if I said that house is going to be worth more next year in our trending market where we're at right now. And in 2 years, it might even be worth a little bit more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you sold it right now, you are going to well, you're not thinking about selling. I'm just giving you an example. If you were to sell it right now, it'd be at one price, but you could sell it in year 1, 2, or 3 and still not owe any capital gains. So that frees up capital that you're not forced to put into the next property. It might give you security of having reserves. Like my goal is I have 6 months cash reserves for all my expenses. Business.
You're ahead of the curve then. You've been through a few things, and it sounds like.
Yeah.
Risk.
Well, I went through the last downturn. I told you properties ended up with 42.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So those kind of things are important. Another thing in the early years when you're investing, and I'm sure you would think this way because you're diversified already into other fields, but your real estate money should stay in real estate. You're doing this for cash flow, but not next year. This is like your, a retirement plan, an exit strategy, something to maybe balance work and family a little bit more, right? But you're not going to go buy a property and say, okay, I just added $500 to my cash flow that I can spend, right? Because you need to allow for those expenses of furnaces and roofs and mishaps that just happen, vacancies or whatever. And that's not coming. I mean, you already know all this, so I'm kind of going off on a weird tangent.
So Jeff, I'm with you on all this. Like I said, I'm okay with creative financing, kind of mixing assets. Like I said, I don't know if Leah shared the email that I sent to her yesterday or the day before. Kind of just told you what we paid for what this house is currently worth, what we've got to finance for. We got one rental property that's paid off. We got a HELOC. So like I said, I don't know if she shared that with you, but I'm open to however I get to this ultimate goal of owning my life completely. How I get there. And
that's why we're having that conversation, right? Because your down payment money right now, you got 20%. Okay, let's just say that. I mean,
I have 109,000 on a HELOC, so it gives me about a 20%. So what is that? 20% of 500,000, roughly.
So 100 and what?
109.
109 on a HELOC. Okay, so you can use that whole 109 on a HELOC and go buy one property.
Yep.
You could get a 3% down conventional loan on a primary residence and still have that HELOC to look for another product. Okay, there's nothing to say you can't go buy turn this one into a rental, and now you're still in the market sooner rather than later for your fourth rental.
Right.
And you still have most of that HELOC to work with. See what I'm saying? If you're going 10 properties, how do you get there? You got to maximize the strength of your capital that you have to work with. If you owe it all on one deal, you got to either pay that down or save up some more money like I did in the early years, or you got to get it a little bit more creative. That's why I'm kind of throwing your own home into the mix. Potential 1 of 10. And your financing, okay, so your financing on that next one is going to be a better loan. It sounds like you're going to be leveraged out anyway. If you use the 109 from your HELOC and an 80% down on an investor interest rate, it's going to be a higher interest rate.
Right.
But if you're maxed out at 97% and you're a whole point lower, the spread is usually a full point between owner occupier.
1 point's a big deal.
It's
that could make or break a lot of things really quickly, especially over the long run.
Because I'm very simple-minded, here's the very simple way to equate that I usually have to educate my first-time home buyers and stuff when they're looking at that one, because right now it's so prime because of the interest rates. Say what you want about the values compared to the past and the future or whatever, but that interest rate is huge. Like I said, I've got a lot of 7.75%, 7.5% loans. If 4 or 5, 1%, if we're talking debt service, okay, 1% increase will decrease your purchasing power by 10%. So a $5,000 house at 1 point is $50,000. Okay, so if you can save that 1%, it's like you just got a 10% discount on that house you bought for your portfolio.
I'm with you on all of that.
Okay, so yeah, and I'm not trying to educate you on it. I'm trying to just go over options so you can formulate a plan. What makes most sense to do first? As soon as you know what you're going to do first, if that's to buy another primary residence, we got a whole different starting gate than if you're going to go buy a triplex.
So my investment plan here was just who I told a little bit, we've talked a little bit about. So it sounds like I need to get a little bit more clear on, I mean, we ideally we'd like a duplex, and whether I live on one half of it and rent this place out or not in the right part of town where we want to live is okay with me. But that from a rental property standpoint speaks to me, or anything over a duplex, or if it's another single family home, which is what you kind of talked about here, it'd have to be the numbers would have to be a little bit tighter on that. It seemed like for that to work. Is that?
But if you buy another single family home, the numbers you're looking at is what's the rental rate and what are you going to get cash flow wise on this house that you're sitting in right now?
Yeah, so that's not, yeah, so that should be pretty straightforward on that piece. So I guess, what do I need to do next to start looking at some deals so I can start getting a feel for what's out there right now? And like I said with Leah, we're not in a hurry, but we're looking for the right work. Depending on what you believe, okay, where you think the economy is going to correct, unemployment's at about 30 million, things like that, where you think it's going to go in the next little while, whether 1 or 2 years. Like I said, we were kind of thinking that the economy is going to correct at some point on that, or if not, can I get a good enough deal that when the economy does turn down, whether you believe it's 20, 30, or at all, can we weather that storm easily enough to where my tenants are able to stay renting and pay their rent? So there's some things like that we're kind of sensitive to.
Well, my first little piece on that is don't bring in a whole lot of national numbers to your decision, because there is no national real estate market. Okay. It's just an average of what's going on in good and hot markets all across the country blended together. You got to, and Leah did share some of your email, and you're kind of like microed down. I like that. It's like to simplify some of your desires, whatever. Your only concern is our local market here right now. And so even within Salt Lake County, if I'm talking about a Kearns property, that's going to be a different market than a Sugar House property. If I'm talking about Bluffdale or East, okay, right? So unemployment rate is relative. And again, when we're talking rate, ROI, unemployment rate, we're talking about today's snapshot in time. If I made my portfolio decisions based off of that every single time, I probably wouldn't have bought as many properties, because it's going to change next year. It's going to change in 10 years. And I've been doing this 30 years. And so the first property I bought was $48,500, 4-bedroom, 3-bath townhome down in Provo. Worth $300,000 now. And so any decision I made back then, if I'm looking behind, I said, oh, I could have paid 10% more than they were even asking. So history corrects and increases a lot of assumptions in real estate just because of time. Okay. My favorite thing about real estate is it's the only thing, unlike some of your investments, where you can lock in investment debt that creates a hedge against inflation. So you're locking in a payment based on today's value of the dollar for 30 years. And you know we got some steep inflation coming. We've been doling out money like it's nothing, right? So what does that inflation do? Rent's going to cost more. It may not, like right now, it's a little softer because of our market. But if the value of the dollar continues to deflate, it's going to take more dollars to pay my mortgage, and that payment's going to stay the same. So my cash flow goes up. That is why I kind of use that 1% interest rate, 10% purchasing power. You can focus on one or the other, but it's really a blend of both based on your goals and how long you're going to own that property. And if you're going to own it for 5, 10 years or more, then really it gives you more freedom to pick a product and an asset that's tangible that you want to own without being so overly critical on crunching all those numbers. You know?
No, I'm with you.
You want to get close. Does that make sense?
Have you done many 1031 exchanges? So we've got this townhome. It's cash flowing. Like I said, we paid it off, stuck the value of that one onto this house because it had so much value in it. Now cash flows at about $1,400 minus the HOA fee, which is like $195. That would be one property we've been kind of thinking about to get away from that HOA fee of a couple $100, basically putting that into some other property to see if we could leverage that piece of it to get a better rate of return, keep more money in our pocket. Any thoughts on that?
I love it. You have a lot of options there because Leah, send him a link to our training tomorrow. Well, Are you free tomorrow at noon for now?
No, because I'm 2 weeks out vacation. I start back tomorrow, and I'm it's going to be hell next week. Or
I'll record it.
tomorrow.
I'll record it.
Okay.
The reason I'm pointing to that particular class is it's on this topic. So I've done a couple trainings here for my agents on 1031 exchange because I need new and seasoned agents. I mean, you'd be surprised how few agents actually invest in the products they buy and sell for other people, right? And so the more they know, the more they can serve you. Leah knows about 1031 exchange. She and I can work together on getting you to the right people, right? So it's not like, hey, I'm a 1031 exchange expert, but my guy is. Anyway, long story short, he referred me to another investment company that he's the administrator, he's the attorney that does my 1031 exchange. And I mean, you have so many options there. I think I even have a recording of that class. I'll look it up. But a lot of agents don't know you can do a reverse 1031 exchange, which you're familiar with the 1031 exchange, right?
I am, but I'm not familiar with the reverse.
Okay, so I hope this isn't going too far on a tangent, but again, it's one of those things that gives you options, okay? Because knowing that you can do a reverse 1031 exchange has its advantages, because you might be able to go and find the replacement property before you sell. It's the same timelines. When you sell a property, you don't get to take any of the money in your possession. It goes to the administrator. You have the language in the REPC of what you're doing. You have 45 days after disposing of the disposal property to identify up to 3 replacement properties. Then you have to close on one of those within 180 days. Okay, and if you didn't identify it during the 45 days, it's not going to qualify. So you have a window, okay? So, for instance, when I bought this office building, I bought it and I identified 3 properties I might sell. Okay.
Right.
So I had now options of selling 1 or more of those to get that value up and take the capital from that and have it defer backwards into this acquisition. So it's the same concept, it's just in reverse, okay?
All right, I'm with you.
And there's about another 100 spokes on that we won't get into, but the class tomorrow, because I don't want more management hassles. Like I told you, I can't go into residential unless I go debt-free, because there's no mortgage product for somebody with my count of mortgages right now. So I'm going into commercial. This guy that's doing the class for us tomorrow has kind of a unique strategy for 1031 exchange money. It also applies to self-directed IRAs, 401ks, but he specializes in 1-tenant buildings, like for instance, a CVS pharmacy, okay, that has a corporate guaranteed lease for just 1 tenant, and that's a triple net lease. So they pay the insurance, the utilities, all the maintenance, all the expenses, and it's guaranteed by corporate, okay? It's just 1 tenant. Now, the way he does it is you can buy into a product like that as a fractional owner, and you all own it together as tenants in common. And so that means, like, the amount I'm doing a 1031 exchange is 1.7 million. A building like that's gonna be, I wouldn't even guess. He's got them all over the country, but let's say it's 10 million. I couldn't buy the whole thing, but I can come in if there's an opening and I can roll my money into that. Now, here's the beauty of that though. If my debt service is only 600,000, I'm deferring 1.7. They have a loan product now that I can leverage that transfer up to 75% of the value on a non-recourse loan, because it's already secured by the income from that tenant that's already been there for years. So I can kind of have the best of both worlds. I can defer my gain. I can take out a new loan, non-income money that I could use for something else that I pulled out of that exchange, and I'm still only leveraged 75%. He's got other products that are debt-free products where you would exchange kind of maybe a portion if you had a lot of equity, and you could put into a debt-free product for cash flow. One I just mentioned is an option for cash. If I wanted to free up some cash out of those properties I'm selling, but I don't want to pay taxes on it, just gives me an option. So it's kind of one of those things I just mentioned really fast, but it's like, I'd like to know more about that. So as I was talking to him, I was like, hey, could you do a class for my agents? This is something they at least need to know is available, so that when they're servicing their clients, they can say, hey, I got a guy you should talk to. He might have some options for you that you hadn't thought of. And so you have a lot of options with a free and clear rental property on what you might do. You could take that, cost, and that whole nut of selling that property could just be your down payment. If you're going into a product, right, that you can get the financing on the rest of the debt service, survive that. So you would have basically the same kind of options you have now with the HELOC, but it would be off something that's not leveraged at this point.
I mean, at the really like high end, like I was telling Leah, you know, if we were able to do a 1031 exchange with that condo, which is, I think the rough estimate value is about 220,000. That gives us the 20% for $1 million property to see if we can get something to appreciate, or the cash flow is right, or something. But that's kind of the extreme end of our budget, anyways.
Right.
So,
Right. No, I mean, but again, it gives you options, or you use half of that and do 25% on a $500,000 property and still have, you know what I mean? So product like this, if you can leverage to 75% on this type of 1031 exchange, then you have the other 50,000 that could go into one of those debt-free modules for cash flow. So you get kind of like more diversification, like is kind of your goal anyway.
that's
So
great.
I guess what we need to decide is if buying our residential property is off the list, then we'll just set that aside. If you say, okay, I'm going to go for an investment product, we kind of have to line up what's going to happen first, because you've talked about a lot of things. There's a potential of selling your house. Renting your house and buying another primary residence. There's a potential of doing a 1031 exchange. You got the HELOC. So which one is kind of like the method first, and that'll help us dictate.
Okay, so there's three things I heard there. One, am I going to decide on just a pure investment product, which is like the duplex?
So that would be when we use a 1031 exchange for our townhouse. Solely for that.
Okay. Or do we go for a single family home and rent this place out and move someplace?
But we have two other, so we have multiple options, because here's the thing is, we can use the townhouse as a 1031 exchange to get one property. If we see something else down the road, we have 5 years on that HELOC.
Right.
We can get a different house and use this as a rental, as to get a different residence later.
Right.
So we can do the 1031 exchange now. It's an investment. Get us some investment property. Save that HELOC. Find the right residential house for the right price. Rent this out. Use the HELOC for down payment on a residential.
Okay. So I guess what do we need to get back to you on? I guess it's just what product we're going to go with, or what we're going to focus on. Should we pick?
Well,
like
and also
two?
the sequence of events too. Like you just brought up a great option, but that would entail selling one and buying another one, or selling one and just rolling into a product like we're doing our class on tomorrow, which is already in place. And you get to compare just like anything else. You get to look at the rents. You get to compare it to other products on the market. You get to look at he's got different investments across the country, the same type of concept, but I don't know anybody else that brokers deals like that. And I asked him, so what's your fee for doing that? And he says, well, a lot of these buildings we build. So they're building the building and selling it at its cost. And again, that's the cost per square foot and all that stuff you can compare to what another building is, because he says we're usually cheaper, even though we're retailing the product, but they're making their money off the construction. And then the lenders that loan off of the cash flow basically keep the cash flow, right? And so he's just arbitraging a few different types of investors and putting them all together in one product. I love it. I think it's brilliant. I've only had one phone call with him though.
Can I ask one question, which is one that comes up quite a bit in my industry? Are you familiar with the fiduciary standard?
Sure. We all are up to fiduciary in real estate for sure.
You guys are all fiduciary. So since we signed a contract with Leah, it's with your brokerage, that means you guys act in our best interest. And that's actually I don't remember seeing that language in the
100%, and it's in there. Go back to the buyer agency agreement she said. So basically, your interests come above
my own. anything.
Well, they come
Well, it's
first.
not suitable. It's a fiduciary standard.
Yes, I have fiduciary duties to you, 100%.
Right. That's good to know. I just want to.
Yeah. And see, that kind of goes to what I was talking about when I go to listing appointments and I talk people how to sell their house, because they don't know what they don't know. So our first job is just to, hey, our experience is we've come across these options. You've bought 2, 3, 4 homes in your life. You know, I do that many every month. So I may have come across circumstances that you haven't seen yet. So I want my first fiduciary is make sure you know what your choices are. So when you're making that choice, you're making it against everything else. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to everything else. And if you don't know what you're saying no to, you know, the biggest thing Leah and I don't want is a client of ours saying, I wish somebody would have told me that.
So let me ask you this. Out of the 3 options or 4 options that we talked about, which one has the least amount of risk?
The least amount of risk would be to rent this house and buy another primary residence.
Okay, what would be the
Residence based
second
on your
option?
affordability.
What would be the second? What would be the second? So would that be a duplex where we rent this place out and go buy a duplex and live in half of it? Would that
You could buy up to a 4-plex. It's a
fourplex and live in it?
residential single family up to 1 to 4 units.
Okay.
So triplex, you mentioned a triplex already you looked at. It could
Do you
be,
want to focus on that?
I just really love this home, and we're just working on the yard.
I know, moving
I'm
sucks.
emotionally, so here's my issues, just so I'm emotionally attached to the yard I'm working on and this neighborhood, and I love this home with all of its flaws. I'm not emotionally attached to moving my investment from the townhouse into a duplex or a fourplex.
Yep.
So my attachment is this neighborhood has been good for my family and good for me, and I like it and I don't want to move.
And you don't have to do that. The question was, which one's the lowest risk?
Yeah, so with the lowest risk, yeah, that is where I'm gonna, if you want to know where someone's gonna dig their heels in, probably where I'm gonna dig my heels in the most, just to make things
Okay, no, fair
easier for
enough.
everyone to understand. I have emotional attachments to this, and then I would have an emotional reaction to houses, whereas if it's an investment property that's purely investment that I'm not going to live in, then I can go square footage, what's the rent, rental opportunity, what's the likelihood that it's going to appreciate in value,
Okay, you just muddled it. I just need to know what.
Okay, well, you muddle a lot, Daniel.
Okay, so
Anyway,
that wouldn't be
so
choice
what I
number
can say
1.
I won't be emotionally attached to an investment property. I can make more of an objective decision on it, whereas I will be emotionally attached. So it will be a
Okay,
lot more
you guys can
difficult.
talk about that component of what you're gonna do. So for now, let's set that aside. So now I guess the second choice would be use the HELOC, buy a property, or sell the townhome and buy a property. Okay, so that's the next choice. You're not gonna probably do both together right now. You're gonna do one or the other. So as far as appeal, you kind of said you didn't like the HOA. If getting rid of that made you feel good and replacing it with a better property, you still have the other option we've talked about. You just don't have to do it today, right? So that would be the choice. I think you started with, hey, let's use the HELOC and go buy another rental property. So that's just another option. They'll sell the townhome and go buy another rental property. So you're still gonna have the same quantity, you're just replacing.
Which one goes first?
More asset value, right? When I was a young kid, I was so simple-minded. It's like, hey, if I want to retire with $10 million, I got to go buy $10 million worth of real estate. Somebody's going to pay it off over time. That's the easiest investment strategy there is.
Mm-hmm.
If I want $10,000 a month cash flow, I got to go buy property that brings in $10,000 a month rent. And then once my debt service is gone, investment done. Retire, retirement plan simplified. I got to make it easier. I don't.
Yeah. Agreed on that. So I guess, well, what do I need to? Right. I guess, do I need to have you guys send me a bunch of? Have we given you enough information going on to send me some deals so I can start to look at them? We can kind of talk. I can crunch some numbers, Or we can try.
I think we need to get a little tighter. I think we need to get a
Okay.
little tighter. We got to know what lender we're working with, so you have that component to add in your debt service, and we're not guessing. Okay.
Okay.
Today, what's the interest rate? How does that affect you? What if I put 20% down? What if I put 25% down? You have options unique to your financial situation that we need to know about. Okay. So we need that component. Then we need to know if you're selling the townhome or using the HELOC, because now we're working capital and time frame. Okay. Until we know those things, we can start sending you stuff so that you can kind of get a feel for the market, but we're not ready to pull the trigger yet because we haven't really devised our plan. That makes sense?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So lender approval and input from them on finances and which strategy makes the most sense. I don't think, from what I'm hearing, it's going to be the primary residence. I only brought that up because, again, you have options, because you could still sell this one within the next 3 years and not even have to do a 1031 exchange. You could stay liquid, or you could, buy another property, but you have options and choices that way, or you could keep it. You could keep it. It's got a great loan. It's been paid down X amount of years. It's ammed out. I like it. Let's keep it. Right. So that gives you more choices, and you don't have to do that today. You can do that later as well. So if we're using the HELOC, see now these are numbers that I need to throw at the lender. We've got the down payment money, but that down payment money is going to come with some debt.
Right.
The townhome, you're going to lose some income. You know what I mean? You're bringing in $1,400 a month rent right now. How much is your minimum payment going to be on the HELOC? Those are comparisons we need.
So, okay, so then I do need to make a decision on the lender and just get the numbers crunching. Did we get something from Brandon from you? I know he.
No, I added you to the thing so that, because, you're.
Okay, so I'll bug Brandon again and just get that taken care of, and then we'll make a decision on the HELOC and townhome and send you an email on those two things.
Do that first. Do that first. And so, see, what I would do with my lender is, like, if I was just introducing you to my lender, I would send an introduction email and I would say, okay, here's our options that we're looking at. Kind of give him, and do the same thing with your guy that you're talking about. Say, I've got some options. I need to know which one's best. So as you qualify me based on my income, know that it's going to be based on a future scenario you haven't decided on yet. So I need you to run it as if we max out our HELOC and buy a property, use it as our down payment. Or if we sell the townhome, now we have no rental income coming in from that, which you're going to be able to count about 75% of that rental income towards, the next purchase if you keep that.
Right.
Those are different scenarios, and they're going to come back with probably a different qualification range. And that's not saying we need to max that out either. They might say, okay, with that down payment, you can go buy a $750,000 property. That's what we're looking for, right? We might say, because of the dynamic of rents to value, we want to stay at 500. So I just don't have those pieces of the puzzle yet to kind of say, here's the product we're going to start sending you so you can start seeing what's out there, because we might look at the wrong shit. Okay, we're looking at this, and then after we talked to Brandon or whatever his name was, now we're moving to another product. So just want to simplify it, make it less confusing as possible.
Okay. All right. I'll text Brandon here in a little bit to see if he can give you some more direction, and then she and I will discuss on the HELOC or townhome.
Perfect.
And we'll get back to you shortly. Then, is there anything else I needed to be aware of or decide on while we're?
I like to start with step one. Let's get that done, and then that's going to
Like that.
this conversation.
One thing at a time.
Okay.
That'll just
for dinner.
Yeah, right. Well, see, my kids are young and they all own property because I narrowed it down to that. They're like, oh, well, what if? They range at 28 years old to 23 years old. And my oldest, she's on her fourth property, right? And I said, oh, quit with all the what ifs. You don't even know if you can get a damn loan. Let's pre-approval process and talk to a lender before we talk about all these other scenarios, because we can hypothecate all day long. But until we know what the starting gate is, we're not even going to make decision number two. We're kind of in that same situation because you have options. If you only had one, then we're going to say, okay, let's just verify with the lender and let's draw a product. But you've got some options, so.
Okay, and should when we say we're talking about the townhome, either selling it, are we including that? Are we including the 1031 exchange or reverse?
Absolutely. How long have you owned it?
I've owned it since 2008. I got it in July 2008. We rented it out for 3 years.
Awesome.
Oh.
Perfect. Well, good on you guys. So yeah, we definitely want to do the 1031 exchange. And likely it would be just a normal 1031 exchange, because if you're going to do the purchase first, you know, that brings in a whole nother discussion of creativity on how we're doing that purchase before we sell, where the money's coming from.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So we'd probably just do a traditional, prep that one best for market. I mean, me and Leah come out there. There's ways you can maximize the value. There is no true comparables in the market. It's not just like just the data from the MLS, right? You've been using the word emotionally. That's who we want to sell to, is somebody that sees them living there. They're going to make a decision emotionally based on how you rank against the competition of what's on the market. We don't want them to walk in your townhome, start creating a punch list. We're going to take care of that.
Oh, it's beautifully done.
What?
So, it's beautifully done. We remodeled it. It's,
Yeah, perfect, perfect.
and our tenant keeps it really nice. So
Nice, nice. So yeah, we'll address that if that's the decision on how to maximize and get the best retail for that product. And then because of the market we're in, 45 days, as long as we've established the area with a little bit of a, I guess, a buffer to be able to broaden out there if we can't find a perfect product, we're going to be moving so quickly anyway. 6 weeks looking for a house and identifying properties is pretty substantial in this market because things go so quickly. Whatever you're going to buy isn't even on the market yet. Right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, that's what I'm reading. Okay. Well, Jeff and Leah, thanks so much. This has been a lot of fun. We'll get back to you here shortly.
Okay.
Hey,
Nice to
thanks,
meet you
guys.
guys.
Good night. Have a good night.
Bye,
All
guys.
right, talk to you later, Leah. It's nice meeting you guys.
Bye. See you at 1031 Exchange tomorrow.
Yeah, noon. Okay, see you.
Bye.
Bye.